Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brent.
Man, and I'm here with the vet, Mr. Ian Griffin. Man, it's so good to be here tonight.
Well, hey, man. So we're at the end of Thanksgiving. I got to say this is I stepped on the scale this weekend and it said I was back down to 197 or something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah. And yeah, it was leaning up against a trim on the side of the freaking
Oh,
wall.
my goodness.
That mother flipper, man. I was about to throw the scale out the window after that, after I realized it lied to me. Maybe I should just step on it when it's on the trim. I don't know. So
yeah, just put on the trim each week and you'll be 197 every week.
That'll be within Army standard for a 5'11",
hey,
50-year-old
right
guy.
now, I'm in bulking season. Not even I am 197 right now.
Well, I'm definitely not 197. I'm at 197 plus some. I can say that. So anyway.
Me too.
Oh, goodness. So, man. So just recently, we had the Rittenhouse case and justice prevailed, even though people said it didn't. When you put it in front of 12 people, it normally always prevails. It's just the way it is. Either you have the evidence or you don't have the evidence. And if you don't, people are not going to go to jail. So for Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse, it only took the district attorney to file charges on him within 48 hours. And you and I both are not dumb people that sit here and realize that a murder charge or several murder charges require a lot of work, but they filed it in 48 hours. Now, out of the 250 people that have been charged with some sort of crime for rioting, burning, looting, arson, whatever you want to call it, none of them have been prosecuted. And where we know a murder charge takes a lot longer conviction normally than does something like that. So I was just throwing it out there first, and then I'll talk about all the damage that was done. But so what the flip-flop is going on with that, Coach?
Well, it seems to me that the first 48 hours, he was getting a lot of pressure because of what was going on in the streets at that time. He was terrified that they were going to, riot and loot more. He was terrified of some of the things that the politicians were saying. And even the president of the United States at that time, people were just saying things, just throwing things out without any evidence. We used to be that country where you were innocent until proven guilty. And not just the prosecutors and defendants knew that, and the defense attorneys knew that. The public knew that. And normally they would sit back and say, wait for the trial to come up and let it be done. But in this case, because of what's been going on the last few years, it's like if you do not immediately come out and be on the side of the wacky left, as I call them, then you can expect to be canceled. And just like we talked about, the other people, one of the things that you and I talked on the phone the other day was the gentleman that pulled the gun on Kyle. There's no charge for that. Yeah, there's 250 other charges, but where's the charge for that? That started the whole issue.
Well, so the one at the end, Grosskurtz, who pulled the pistol up, I don't know if there's a charge on him or not. It hasn't been said, but they said that you couldn't subpoena his phone records because there was potentially other charges for him, which I don't know on that right there. So potentially, I don't know. What does that mean? I'm thinking about it. If it's a rainy day, I don't have my quota up, I guess I'll charge him. Not that instigated anything. So I don't know. Go ahead, Coach.
Well, one of the things that we talked about is about the way that the protests and the rioting, looting, the protesting is fine. It's one of the things that the left does. If they are not happy about something, just say we're not happy as the people on the right or conservative that this gentleman has not been brought to any charges against or arrested. Why don't we go out and protest? Why do we not go out and hold a sign and say to do it? And that's the reason that a lot of times these things aren't done. The reason Jesse Smollett right now is sitting at home and nothing happened is because the right didn't go and burn something down and terrorize the streets and say, until this is done, no justice, no peace. The two different sides, the way we act, sometimes, no, we shouldn't burn and loot. But sometimes you do see that things from the left get done, that the things on the right don't get done because they actually stand up for it. We sit back and complain about it with our neighbors in the street or at the bar, but we actually don't do anything about it in the streets, Fed.
Well, so one thing I want to talk about real quick, and here Tuesday night live, we are going to have two special guests on, and we're going to talk about the other side of Wisconsin where Mr. Brooks, Darrell Brooks, ran over some people, and he'd been released from prison from jail several times, and everybody scratches their head, why was he released? But we'll cover all that then. But with this case here, it was definitely politically charged, which we talked about. It probably would have never went to trial if politicians who carelessly and recklessly used their credibility, which evaporated their credibility, in an effort to sway things or to change people's minds and to invoke opinion in it, instead of saying, Staffer, go get me the real evidence. Staffer, go talk to the DA, see what they're saying. Staffers is legit. Yeah, something that you would only expect all the rest of the politicians has done over the last 200 something years. They didn't do. But in Kenosha's a town of 178,000, suburb of Chicago. And out of it, $50 million of private property was damaged. 40 businesses, 40 buildings were completely destroyed. Not just a little bit. There's over 100 buildings somewhat destroyed, but 40 were completely destroyed. $50 million worth of damage, and only $2 million of local government property was damaged. So I guess the local government property is good with that, $2 million. Who cares about the citizens who pay their taxes and all that other stuff that bring commerce in and, are the mainstay in the community? Who cares about them? Because apparently we're not charging or prosecuting. Well, we did charge, excuse me. Apparently we're not prosecuting anybody yet. I have looked and I have found nothing. And I am willing, anybody, throw it up here. If you find it, please, we'll change our narrative on it real quick, because we'd like to know who's being charged and what they're being charged for. Like maybe arson. I don't know. What does arson hold in Wisconsin? Most places I know, arson is normally like around 10 years or so, or even longer. It is no joke. So, but one thing that was discovered is out of the 170 people, there was 220 something people, and then there was 50 something later that were arrested. And out of the 220, 170 of them were directly from Kenosha, and then the rest were from mainly some suburbs around it. So it really wasn't that far away. There were some people from Washington, Oregon, supposedly, that traveled in. I don't know what business they had in Kenosha. I guess they was trying to go see where Laverne and Shirley and freaking the Happy Days happened at, and they just got tied up in the moment. I'm quite sure that's exactly what it was. They had no ill will whatsoever, So, but at the end of the day, we rushed to go ahead and prosecute the hardest crime that the DA would have to handle. And we forgoed freaking ankle biters, freaking low-hanging fruit that you could have already yep, get him in for 8 years. Yep, get him in for 8 years. Get him in for 10 years. And could have already had half of these done, but we chose to follow the politics of it. That's all I can say about it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all that there, Coach?
Well, to me, there's no doubt that it's political. I mean, it's one of those things where there's a certain part of the community and the country now that believes if you do something illegal or criminal act, and it has good meaning behind it because some other injustice possibly occurred, and you believe an injustice occurred, then whatever you do criminally should not be held to the same standard as someone else that you point to that did something criminally. All that you heard about was this white supremacist kid running across state lines with a legal gun to shoot people at a Black Lives Matter protest. When, like you said, there were over $50 million worth of damage done. There was 250 people that were, arrested or charged. We're not hearing any about that on MSNBC. We're not hearing about that on CNN. We're not hearing that on the progressive 127 or 126 on. I've been trying to find it. But what you do hear about is this kid getting off. Well, what this kid did was, he got to use what a lot of us want to use in the great United States of America. It's called self-defense. And the state law that he was under, what he did was within his right to do so. And it would be in our same right here in Texas too, Vet. I mean, if someone attacks you and you believe your life is in danger and you have a weapon, you can use that weapon to protect yourself if you feel like you're in danger. No one even gives this guy any credit at all. They call him a white supremacist, Trump loving, whatever, instead of looking at what you're talking about. There's many criminal acts that occurred prior to that. Not only were they looting, burning, one guy that was there was trying to put a dumpster on fire at a gas station. I wonder what that would have exploded and done to the neighborhood. I mean, so it's just absolutely ludicrous. But it's just, again, if it's something criminally that's done by a subset of the society that believes that we're doing it because we have been offended or taken advantage of or injustice for so many years, then white people or people there, the business people themselves, they have insurance. It'll take care of it.
Yeah. So a couple of things I got. First of all, I want to talk about the small business owner. I had a friend that I went to school with in the military, and he talked about his dad was owned a little general store in town. And he goes, everybody thought his dad was rich because he owned his own business. And he goes, Ian, he said, we built a house, and when we built the house, we didn't finish the interior walls on it. And we finished the interior walls like every 2 years because my dad didn't have the money because he was a small business owner. And he serviced the town, and he didn't have any real money. And so everything he did was he said, I was the first one to move out, and my bedroom was the last one to get finished. And he goes, I could see through my sister, through the walls, to see my sister through there, and everything else. I'm like, that is crazy. But people don't realize small business owners are small business owners. They're a vital part of a community, and they're not loaded. They have enough to make ends meet for them and their family if they're lucky. Some of them don't even make it. Majority of small business owners don't survive the first 5 years, as you and I both know. Second thing on here is what I'll say is, I don't think it matters if it was right or wrong. I think it matters if it fit one's narrative or not. And the narrative was, in the eyes of the media and the politician, was there was a target of opportunity because he looked like a conservative. He smelt like a conservative. He carried a gun. So that wakes the California crowd up real quick. And that's all they needed to know was those three things right there. They didn't need to do any digging and do any journalistic homework on it. They didn't need to go verify if he was all those. To be honest, he could have been as liberal as Boy George before it's all over with, or what's her name? I can't think of her name, but she played in that movie with old Bradley Cooper there. But he could have been as liberal as both of them. They didn't care because he looked like the part they were searching for. And that was a white conservative young man being trotted up to be a white supremacist in their minds, which he was far from any of that. He did happen to be a white young man. But other than that, he wasn't anything else. So they didn't care about the truth. They honestly didn't. They just cared about their narrative. And they said, we own the network. So go figure. We can go spin this as hard as we want. All we got to tell people is, like Fox and all them were lying. And our people believe us that, although out of all of them, Fox, I'll say what it is. Fox was dead on, and the others were lying. And, but what happens whenever you have a lie in school? He was lying. Well, that's the first person that's really lying. He was lying. That's the first person really lying. So things haven't changed on that. What is sad, though, is the real question is, will any of these people that own small business ever get their businesses back? Some of them won't, and some of them have said, we're moving out. And some people say, well, they're changed. They got insurance. No, there's people buying in those franchises that dump a lot of money in those franchises to pay the franchise fee to have them there, and their life just got ruined because we should give them a break. I also blame the local government in this, the local and the state government, because they took a knee during this time. And they have a role to protect their citizens and their commerce. If we do not understand, if you think about this, if you go back to our forefathers, if you do not understand how our country was founded, to be honest, think about why we had a Navy. Thomas Jefferson was dead set against us having a Navy across all parts, but we kept on all our capitalism, and our commerce started getting pirated over in the Barbary Coast. And he goes, okay, Georgia can't go fight this. South Carolina can't go fight this. We got to have a consolidated Navy so we can go fight the pirates. That's why we came up with the Navy, to be honest, was to go fend for our commerce, which is our way of life. But now we just forgot about all that and just said to hell with it. And, who cares if you have a business? We don't need you in the community. We think, just like we don't need police in the community. So anyway, that's just a couple of my thoughts on this, Coach. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things you're right about is this: is that whenever something happens at your home or something happens at your business, something happens at a traffic wreck, if there's a collision, the first people anyone call, I don't care who you are, black, white, lower socioeconomic, to a rich person, is you contact the police department, because you know that those people are, it's kind of like a referee. They're not supposed to pick sides. They're supposed to be there to protect you. There's always going to be ones that talk different than others, just like there's referees who's going to treat you different as anything else. But what I don't get, Ed, is that when something like this happens, people are, even the police now are getting a little bit uh, worried about going into the community and doing what we call policing. And that's why we pay you to be the police. That's why we elect certain people to be in charge of the police. That's why we allow you to take monies from our property and our taxes to police. We don't take it for you to allow people to go down the street just because they're pissed off about something and burn and loot and tear up shit. And excuse my language for that. I don't mind a protest. We're talking about the Aubrey case here in just a minute. We don't have but a few minutes, but I actually was a part of a protest with the Aubrey situation when it first came up, with a walk around the park here in Tyler. And you know what? We were peaceful. We prayed before. At the end of it, we prayed again at the end of it. We decided that we were going to take that out in our community and let people know that it was wrong. There's been no doubt that shouldn't have taken so long to be brought to court. There's no doubt that those people murdered that guy. But let justice system work. What we want to do is let the police do the policing, let the justice system do the justicing, and let us sit back and complain if there's a problem. But what we normally do, Vet, lately, is we complain before there's a problem. And it becomes, where we don't want to let the system work. We want to say the system is broke. So if it doesn't work the way we like it, then there's something equitably wrong with the system, when we might just not like the outcome of the case.
Well, so real quick on the Aubrey case, it didn't get half, it didn't get a third of the national coverage that the Rittenhouse case did. Why is that? It's because America was all behind it. We all knew. I mean, we saw the footage. The footage got out before the media could lopside it and turn it and twist it and everything else. America agreed. Them guys need to burn in hell. I'm just saying, those three guys were wrong as three dogs, what? And when it comes to that, though, and then I heard, well, there may be protests, and which protests I don't have a problem with, but we may riot and we may burn this place down. We heard some people say that if the families do not feel they got the outcome they need. I'm here to tell you this. Let's be honest, people. Is anybody who has a kid that gets murdered, do you ever feel the outcome is going to be adequate? Because I honestly don't. That's just me, Ian Griffin. I don't think there's anything you can do that will ever make me feel like I got an equal trade or, and all this other stuff. I'm going to feel like it was wrong, no matter what. No matter what the jury does. Even they put him away and put him in for the gas chamber, electric chair, the lethal injection, whatever. I'm still going to feel that it was wrong, no matter what, if it was my child. It was bad, and it didn't happen fast enough that the law should have prevented it from happening instead of having to take action afterward. So I think we need to throw that narrative out there, because we're wanting everybody to be all kumbaya afterward, and we're not going to be kumbaya regarding that. Family lost their loved one by some freaking senseless people who were freaking losing their dang minds. Excuse me. That's the closest thing I've seen as racism right there on the streets on front page.
No doubt.
Get. And it is what it is. That is exactly what that is. Those three need to go to jail for a long time. If it was me, that should be the first one on the lethal injection line. But I'm not the judge and I'm not the jury. Moving along, we are going to cover Tuesday night. We're going to cover a little bit more about Rittenhouse, about the lessons we learned. We're going to have two special guests on, but we're also going to cover the Darrell Brooks case that the media somehow been kind of hush on in some aspects. Wonder why that is. So, and shouldn't they be covering it with equal passion as they did with the Kyle Rittenhouse case? Seems like to me, Coach, the media likes to go after teenagers instead of going after adults with proven track records of being criminals. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, that's what we've seen recently, and it's not only obscene; it's almost disgusting to a point. One thing I do want to say before we get off, I know we're almost out of time, about the Aubrey. If I didn't say it, I don't feel like I would be, true to who I am. I believe that the Aubrey situation with those three guys, I agree with you. It's a racist situation. Those
Yep.
three guys saw this black guy and said, he's a thief. He's doing something wrong, and we have to stop him. And you know what? We need to have the conversation. You know what, Bet? We need to have this conversation really quick on a podcast coming up. But there's something embedded in some people, and I'm not calling it just in the South. There's something that's still embedded in some people. When you see somebody, a Trayvon Martin, or you see a white guy that looks like a meth addict, or if you see a Hispanic that looks like, he's illegal, that there's something inside of all of us to go, there's something wrong about that, and I need to do something about it. And you know what? I'm not saying we don't police our communities. I'm not saying we not call the cops when we think something's going wrong. And maybe we make a wrong call, but that's not for us to jump in and jump out of a vehicle with a freaking shotgun and shoot somebody. I don't care who you are. I mean, it's not the America that I grew up in. It's not the America I want to be a part of. So there is more deep in that. And there's a systematic, and I don't use that word very often because it's been hijacked, but there's a systematic feeling with some people that when you see somebody dressed a certain way they look, or a certain place that they're at, that we feel like, wait a minute, they're doing something wrong. And who's to say they're doing something wrong, or who's to say the problem is really me thinking the way I think? So I really want to go forward. I want to have this conversation, and maybe we need to have it between you and I, or maybe we need to have it with some other people. But I think we ought to have this conversation soon.
No, I agree. And I will say, I mean, who would have ever thought somebody drove a truck, chased a man down the road based off his skin color and shoot him in today's time? This is stuff that you and I heard when we were kids that happened still 10 years prior and 15 years prior to us growing up, to be honest. And we should have moved way past that in society. Yeah. And I don't know how anybody could ever think that that's right. It's a young man that is not going to be with us, that his whole life was ahead of him. What the flip-flop, man. So
I don't know.
We got to move on.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to see everybody Tuesday night. So I'm going to sit here and throw this out here real quick from the coach.
And to the vet.
Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.